Hello! Today's video is kind of a continuation of Monday's video, and in Monday's video I was talking about the new IT brands. And specifically in that video we were kind of discussing what's super popular right now in the beauty community. But today we're going to talk about what is super popular beyond the beauty community. Like, what are the best-selling palettes that we in this space are maybe kind of sleeping on or not really talking about? And I've actually done a video like this before. I will leave it linked down below. Oh, I'll also have Monday's video since it kind of inspired this. Okay, I am on the Sephora website right now, and one of the top sellers, like right at the top, if you go to palettes and you filter by best-selling palettes, one of the top palettes still, this far later, that didn't make sense, but this far since this launched, is the Tarte in Bloom palette. This one, I'm honestly a little bit shocked by, and maybe that just goes to show that I'm so deep in this community, but it's also a bestseller at Ulta, and this palette is very old, and I don't think it's the best formula, to be honest. I think there are similar color stories with better formulations at a very comparable price point, so I'm kind of surprised to see that this is still such a cult favorite even years and years later. This retails for $45. It has 3,500 stars or reviews. That didn't make sense. 3,500 reviews and almost a full 5 stars on Sephora. That is shocking to me. Also, this one less shocking, but still I was like, okay. Because again, right at the top of bestsellers, Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam. And they've launched a lot of palettes since then, and I feel like there's been a lot more discussion in this community about obviously their newer launches. But Soft Glam, while being an older palette, is still sold very frequently at both Ulta and Sephora, which is just bananas to me. It is, I almost said again, 2,000 stars. Kelly, come on. 2,900 reviews and still almost a full 5 stars. The one that is probably the most shocking to me, but at the same time I'm like, is this. Urban Decay Naked 3. Really? This much later? I guess maybe if 1 and 2 were still around, they would probably be bestsellers. Even 1, I guess maybe not though, because they discontinued 1. You're not going to discontinue if it's still selling well. But I think what a lot of people like about Naked 3, and you can let me know if you have this and you love it and why you gravitate towards it. But I think because it is this very desaturated palette. There's not much to it. I think a lot of people really love it for every day. That being said, it is just so light. It doesn't have a lot of depth and even range in the color, so I don't feel like it works for every skin tone by any means. But I think if you're into that very light wash of color, this is very simple for an everyday look. And I feel like a lot of people, you're not necessarily trying to do something intricate when you're leaving for work. The sun right now, that's okay. We'll go with it, but it keeps coming in and out. But I have really been loving filming at my window lately. I know you guys also really enjoy videos filmed in natural light, so I'm going to take advantage of it as much as I can throughout the summer, and today I'm happy to be filming in the sun. Okay, this one was shocking. This one actually was shocking. Naked 3, I was like, oh, but I could see it. This one, I thought this was discontinued. If you would have asked me if this was still available, I would have told you, no, that's been discontinued for years, but it hasn't. Urban Decay Natural Eyes Eyeshadow Palette. So there was round 1 of this a long time ago. This has been around forever, and then it was reformulated and relaunched. And I have heard so little about this since then because I want to say it was relaunched. My best guess would be 2019, maybe even 2018. I had this palette and I liked it, but I didn't love it, to be honest. I don't think it's the best formula. And again, it's one of those things where I think there are similar color stories, similar price point, better formulas. But with brands like Too Faced and Tarte, they just have more name recognition than a Patrick Ta or even Natasha Denona. Okay, the Naked 2 Basics. This little thing, this is not surprising for me to see in this because I am a fan of an all matte neutral palette, give it to me. But what surprised me with this was the price point. Can someone let me know down below, did this used to be $28? Because that's what I recall. If I was on a game show and you asked me how much is the Naked Basics, I would have so confidently rang in and said $28, but it's $33. And I'm like, was it always $33? Maybe even it was $29? I don't know. I don't remember it being $33. I have noticed so many products, the prices are kind of sneaking up there without really being announced. And then I look back at them and I'm like, wait, wasn't this less? And I could be wrong on this, but it's something I feel like I notice often because I reference price points a lot in my videos and I make note of them to share in videos. So then when I see them changing, I'm like, wait, that wasn't always the price. At least I don't think this one was. Okay, still Anastasia Modern Renaissance. That is nuts to me. That palette launched in 2016. It was all over the internet for years, but I'm surprised it's still a bestseller, not because I don't like it. Like, I like that palette, it's good, I get it, but I feel like it's one of those, if you wanted it, you probably have it. I'm just surprised to see that still, like, every day a lot of people are buying this. And I have heard people say that they have repurchased this because it does have a very short expiration. Anastasia palette's expiration date, 6 months. I don't know who could possibly use up a full eyeshadow palette in 6 months. That being said, I have had my Modern Renaissance for years and I still use it and I don't notice a big change really. But this has 9,000 reviews and almost a full 5 stars, which, wow. It is a good formula. I think it is still a good formulation. I think it still holds up against newer eyeshadow formulas, and it's a bestseller for both retailers. Also, another Tarte one, we have the matte version of this. I remember wanting this palette for years because I love an all matte look. Today, I switched it up. Today, I did all shimmer. I didn't even put a matte on my eyes, which I feel like was tripping me up a little bit out here. I was like, it's kind of hard to blend with just a shimmer, but I'm switching it up. I have been very much in a matte phase recently. Like, I never want to wear shimmers. I've been just wearing mostly matte looks, especially when I'm not filming. When I'm filming, sometimes I'll try to play around a little bit, but in my everyday life, it's mostly been matte. So today I was like, let me try all shimmer. But anyways, back to this palette. Not too surprised really, but again, it's a lot of Tarte in this list. It's a lot of Urban Decay, Anastasia Beverly Hills. Also this kind of newer one, the Juicy Amazonian Clay from Tarte. This is another one that I was like, that is still sold. I would have bet money that this was sold out. Again, if I was on a game show and they were like, is this palette available? I'd be like, no. The Too Faced Pretty Rich Diamond Light eyeshadow palette. This is shocking to me. I owned this years ago and it's not great. It's not the worst palette I've tried in my life, but to still be available is kind of surprising to me because this was like a very specific collection that I thought was limited edition. Also, this wasn't super well loved, and when you look at this color story, it's much more colorful than most of the bestsellers. Like, that's a theme in these bestsellers. They're neutrals. This, it's not the brightest, most colorful palette, but it's got blues, it's got more vibrant shades. I am both shocked that this is a bestseller, but more so shocked that it is still available. Outside of palettes, even like the Hoola bronzer is still a bestseller at Sephora, which is interesting to me. This is one where I'm like, I kind of get that a little bit more than the palettes, just because this is something I think many people that love this bronzer have probably repurchased. Like, at one point you will likely use that up and then you might buy it again, versus a palette you're not really buying again. So sometimes older palettes still being so popular is a little bit more surprising for me than this old, like, cult favorite bronzer still being a bestseller. I will say though, most of the bestsellers on the Sephora page are brands that are Sephora exclusive brands, which does make sense to me because you could not purchase that at another retailer. So it makes sense that a lot of Sephora sales are coming from those products because people are going to Sephora specifically for those brands. But let's look at Ulta. For Ulta, we also have the Naked 3 palette, and this is where I was absolutely shocked. I could not believe that this palette was $59. It didn't used to be, and I'm trying to remember if it used to be $50 or $55 or $49. It didn't used to be $59 though, I can tell you that much, and it's not worth $59. I will also tell you that much. For that price point, buy a Natasha Denona palette. I mean, yeah, technically a Natasha Denona palette is going to be $10 more, but at that point, what is another $10 really? If you're spending $60 on a palette, just spend the extra $70 to have a far better formulation than the Urban Decay Naked 3. I'm sorry, that is ridiculous. Also, Naked 2 Basics is right up there. That is such an old palette. I remember when I was in high school, my best friend had this palette, and I specifically remember like going over to her house and us getting ready together and being like, oh, can I use your Naked 2? And it had like pan in every single shade, and we would all be like trading it like, ooh, I need that color. A lot of the bestsellers at Ulta come from Morphe, which I again think ties back into the fact that you can't really get Morphe at a lot of retailers. So I think people view Ulta as a destination for that brand. But most of these bestsellers from Morphe I have never heard of. The 9T, the 9V. Maybe that's just because I don't really keep up with Morphe. That's probably the reason. But I was like, that's one of your best-selling palettes, really. Also, we never talk about MAC really in the beauty community anymore. Like, they don't get a lot of buzz. But MAC is a bestseller at Ulta, which also makes sense because you cannot buy MAC at most other places unless you're in Canada. I know Sephora Canada has MAC, but in the US, Sephora doesn't have MAC. It's just at Ulta. And that was like a relatively recent addition. So the Connecting Color eyeshadow palette is a bestseller at Ulta. I've never heard of this. Again, that's probably because I don't really keep up with MAC. I don't purchase from them, so maybe I'm just out of the loop, but I've never seen this before in my life. Also, Too Faced Natural Palette, bestseller at Ulta. Again, I was like, am I being punked right now? This is still sold? This is still available. It has not been discontinued. Ooh, one that really made me laugh. The Tarte Clay Play Volume 2. I remember when this came out. First of all, this was a controversial palette because there was like something weird with the actual palette. Like I want to say the names on this are the names from the old palette, and the shade names do not fit what the colors actually are because they used old packaging. Like the shade Stone is like a rosy shimmer. The shade Onyx is gold. Like, I remember people were like, wait, what's going on with this palette? This is another very old one where I'm like, that's a bestseller still. But again, in the beauty community, people don't like this type of palette that is face and eye. That's because many of us have a lot of products. So we are not usually looking for like a multi-function palette like that. Like we already have a million eye palettes, a million cheek products. We don't need it all in one. Whereas I think a lot of people that maybe don't have gigantic makeup collections, this is such a valuable thing. Like to have an all-in-one palette is one, great for traveling if you're on the go frequently, but even if you're not, like this is all you need. This has your whole face. Well, I guess this one doesn't have bronzer, but you know what I mean. Another Morphe one that I've never heard of, again, this could just be me because I don't really keep up with Morphe, but this is like an all cool toned palette. Never seen it before. Also, if you search and like filter under all makeup bestsellers, number 1 is Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation. Surprising and unsurprising to me. Number 2 is the original Tarte Shape Tape. People in the beauty community hate that stuff, but it is the number 2. And keep in mind, like these change based on a lot of factors. So this is what is ranked as of today while I'm filming this, but if you're watching this video a month from now, might be a little bit different. But number 3 is e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. That one doesn't surprise me any. Like that, yeah, that tracks. Number 4, e.l.f. Halo Glow Contour Wand. Don't worry, I'm not gonna read through all these. Number 5 is IT Cosmetics CC Cream. Nobody's talking about that here, unlike the beauty community, but I am not at all surprised that that is a bestseller at Ulta. I feel like that is just like a cult favorite product. Ooh, wait, you know what is very, 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 very surprising to me though? Okay, to give some context, I don't ever hear anyone talking about powder foundations on the internet, which is so surprising to me because I think there are a ton of benefits to a powder foundation over a liquid one. I love a powder foundation, even on my dry skin. I know you're thinking, well, I have dry skin, it won't work. It will. There are some formulas that I think are beautiful on dry skin. And I hear about liquid formulation so much more, and right now, skin tints especially. But at the top of the bestsellers at Ulta, there are 3 powder foundations. Like the only other foundation in general that is a higher rank than this right now is the Double Wear. The next 3 foundations you see are all powder. And I'm like, what? And if you're wondering, oh, I'm lying. One is not a foundation powder. Okay, so 2. One was just a regular powder. I was getting myself so excited. Okay, wait. But the 2 are the original Bare Minerals foundation. Yep, not surprised. I still love that one. But the MAC Studio Fix Plus foundation. So you could wear this either way. And maybe people are more so buying it to be finishing or setting powder and not a foundation powder. But it's interesting to me because especially right now, I feel like the hype I hear is around cream products. I hear some people saying, I don't use powder anymore. But at the top of Ulta's bestsellers, tons of powders, even powder foundations. I always think this is fun to do. Let me know your thoughts down below. Did any of these surprise you? I will leave Monday's video linked because it was kind of the opposite of this, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.